G'day guys and welcome back to another One Piece video. Today we're going to be talking about Starter Deck 11, the Uta Starter Deck. Now we're going to be talking about what comes in the deck, what cards you'll need to get a hold of if you want to play an optimized version of the deck. And we're going to talk about the sealed Starter Deck 11 event which Bandai is hosting, which has some cool promos, some cool prizing, but we'll talk about what that involves and maybe some tips and tricks to help you with your practice, with your tournament play when it does come to that. Now, I'm going to start off with a bit of a hot take. I'm going to say this is probably one of One Piece's worst starter decks. Now, I'm not saying worst in its mechanics and its play. It actually plays really well and can be quite competitive, but say it's the worst because we get a lot of reprints in the deck. There's only what 4 or 5 new cards in the deck. The rest are reprints. Now let's actually, before we talk more about this, let's jump over to the Bandai website. So if we have a look at the official Bandai page, we can see here a lovely banner for Starter Deck 12 releasing February 2nd, so that's not too far away from the time you'll probably see this video. We can see the little blurb here. Characters playing big parts in One Piece Film Red are making an entrance. Use the event cards based on Uta's song to come out on top. So it's all going to be based around the film archetype if you don't know already. So green film, maybe some hints as to what the reprints are if you haven't seen the list already. Just some information here, MSRP and USD right there. The fairly standard stuff coming in starter decks with the deck, Don cards and a play sheet. Now, if we scroll down a bit here, we can see the card list. So we'll pop over here. We can have a look. So these first couple of rows here, all reprints, all coming from OPO2. So I know this may be really good for a lot of people. I know OPO2 was scarce in some areas, so this might be a very welcomed reprint for some of you guys right there. But areas where OPO2 was a little bit more accessible, this is where it's probably going to be a bit disappointing for some people. All these cards here that are being reprinted, except for the Luffy here and the Brook, are all common, uncommon. Luffy and Brook are rares. The rest, common, uncommon. So should be fairly easy to find outside of the reprints that we're getting here. Now, the bottom row is what we're here for. This is all the new stuff. So let's take a quick look at Uta, the leader herself. So 5,000 power, starts with 5 life, mono green. Don ×1 when attacking once per turn. Reveal 1 card from the top of your deck, and if it's film type, you add it to the hand. If not, it goes to the bottom of the deck. Now, if you're playing just straight the starter deck, if you're going to be playing in the sealed event, this is going to be a draw 1 every single turn. No card in the deck is not film. Now, with your optimized builds, most of the ones that we'll kind of talk about have majority film cards, so most of the time you are going to be drawing 1 off that effect, which is really nice for your hand size. Now, the next card, which is the brand new super rare character Uta, costs you 3, 4,000 power, 1,000 counter, is a blocker. End of your turn, trash 1 event card from your hand, you get to then re-stand or reactivate one of your filmed characters. So that you can also use the effect on herself as well. Mainly what you're going to be using this for is going to be the blocker Luffy, especially if you're playing in the sealed event. But otherwise, there are some other cards that you may want to protect that have some good effects, like the Search and Nami, which we'll talk more about Search and Nami in a moment. But yeah, Search and Nami is another one you can try and protect, or some of your key cards, characters that you just may need another attack with the following turn. So it can be quite good there. Very similar to the promo Bart, which was available only in tournament prizing. The only difference there is Bart requires you to rest himself, where Uta just requires you to trash a event card to get the same effect. Next card is Blacklight. So this is just a common, cost you 2. Main effect is if your leader is Uta. So leader lock card right there. Might have been a really good card if it wasn't leader locked. But the effects are you can either rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, or you can KO one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 5 or less. The next card is New Genesis. So this is the other super rare coming out of the starter deck. This card is basically a free draw 1. Cost you 1. Main if your leader is Uta, once again leader locked. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 film card from them to your hand, the rest go to the bottom of the deck in any order. Then you get to reactivate one of your Don. So you're using 1, you're reactivating 1. It's a free draw 1, especially if you're playing just straight starter deck. Everything's film. You're basically drawing 1 card for free with this right here. The last of the new cards that we have is I'm Invincible. So this is a common, costs you 3. Main effect is you can set your Uta leader as active. Once again, leader locked, but this basically is giving starter deck kids effect to this Uta leader right here. Just helps with that extra aggression, helps you close out games. As we know, that's what starter deck kid is really good at. Now the trigger is you can buff something by 1000 right there. So that's all the new cards. Let me jump to another page here. We'll jump to this page here. This gives you the exact amounts of the cards that are available in the starter deck. So as you can see, all the reprint cards we're getting full playset copies of. As for the new stuff, we're only getting 2 of the super rare Uta. We're getting 2 of the super rare New Genesis, which is fairly standard for the starter decks. Usually the super rares in the starter decks only come as 2. But the other card we're only getting 2 of is the Blacklight, the one that rests or KOs things with 5 cost or less. So if you do want to play an optimized build of this Uta deck right here, it's definitely worthwhile trying to pick up 2, because mainly because of the the super rare character here, then the New Genesis, and a lot of the winning lists do run 2 or more copies of Blacklight as well. So if you want to have a good optimized build there, definitely worth picking up 2 of them. Otherwise, like a lot of this stuff except for the Uta, a very leader locked to Uta. Like Uta is very archetype locked right now, which is basically locking you to this leader here. But you can buff maybe your film kids if you're still playing film kid out there with this card here as well. Now next we're going to talk about some staples you want to pick up if you want to play Uta outside of the sealed event here. So we'll go to this page here. There's only 2 staples you need to pick up. The first is Ezo here from OPO. Let's just stick with the small picture, the bigger picture. Full playset of OPO1 Ezo, which is the 2k counter, which on play you can rest something with cost of 4 or less. Definitely pick yourself up a playset of that if you can. Is it uncommon for OPO1? Might be hard to find, but there have been some reprints out of some stuff as well, so that should be accessible. The other card that you need to try and pick up is a full playset of Nami, which is a super rare from OPO2. This Nami, on play when attacking, rest 1 Don, search the top 3 for a film. Except for Nami, the rest go to the bottom deck in any order. So this is the main searcher for film, which I'm actually really surprised, a little bit disappointed that it's not actually included in the starter deck. Even if it's just included at 2 copies. Yeah, I think this is a big miss here, but you're definitely going to need to pick up a full playset of Nami if you want to play Uta as an optimized deck. Now, some other cards that you can pick up and look to play with in the Uta starter deck. Out of these 3 here, probably the one that you want to most likely pick up is the super rare Doflamingo, the big 10 cost. On play, 3 things don't get to restand the next turn. Most of the winning list, which we'll look at out of the Japanese meta, do run at least 1 copy of Doflamingo. Not all of them, but most of them do. Now the other 2 I kind of found here and there scattered about. The Bart promo, which we've mentioned before, just basically helps you restand a film type character. But yeah, this is fairly expensive right now. So yeah, it's definitely not a must, but if you've got some copies from events you've been to, you can definitely put this in a nice optimized build of Uta. The other kind of version of the deck runs some Captain Kids, just from extra defense. Helps you play out some characters as well with that second part of the effect right there. Now if we jump over to One Piece top decks, we can have a look here. These are all the topping lists that have been put onto the website. As you can see, I've highlighted down here, there's 16 topping lists, which is actually not too bad. And some of them have played in some fairly bigger tournaments. As you can see down here, 120 people, 122 people. This guy here went 9-1 in an event, which is absolutely wild. Got 2nd place. Don't know how accurate that is, but that's actually insane if it is accurate right there. And then you can see a lot of 5-0s, 6-0s in tournaments, 6-1 right there. So not a bad deck. As we know from starter deck kid, the film package can be quite good. Now if we have a look at some of these winning lists right here, as you can see, we're running full playset of Ezo. We've got a full playset of a lot of these other film cards. Just 2 Zoros in this list here. Lore, I'm not the biggest fan of Lore, but a lot of these winning decks do have the full playset of Lore in there, as well as what comes in the starter deck. So we can get the Nami here, the Rob and the Uta full playset. Got one of the 0 cost 3000 buff Trasher card events, and then full play sets of all those events that we've spoken about. As you can see, this list does run the promo bar at 3 copies. Once again, we'll look at some other ones, but you see that this is definitely not needed in optimized build. So if we go over to the next one, so this one, no Barts, as you can see, running full play sets of everything up here. Full play set of Zoro in this one. Still full play set of Nami. This one we are running a full play set of the 10 cost Doflamingo. Yeah, really good card. Was really good in the film kid build. This right here. And then we look at our events where we're cutting back on is just 2 I'm Invincible. The rest is full play sets right there. So this is actually a fairly cheap deck to build. Most expensive cards would be your Nami or your Doflamingo, but they should be fairly cheap. Shouldn't be too expensive, but pick them up right now. Who knows what's going to happen when after this deck releases. Now, next one, we'll have one more after this that we'll look at. Very similar, we got the full play sets of everything up here. Just 2 of the laws, which is probably what I would maybe lean towards more. Still got the full play set of Nami. We've got 2 Frankies this time. Big boy Frankie. I like the Frankie. They got the full play set of everything else going on here except the 2 I'm Invincible. So very similar to the last list that we looked at. Same with this next list. Fairly similar. This is the one that runs the 2 kids. Still running the 4 Izos. Only 1 Usopp. Full play set of the rest of these film characters up here. Law back at a full play set. Nami at a full play set. The Frankie at 2. Just the 1 Doflamingo in this list right here. So we're cutting some of the Doflamingos to put in the Captain Kid. And we're also running a new take card of Paradise Waterfall. Cost you 1, buff something by 2k. Then you get to restand a character. So just building upon the Uta effect there, or the Bard effect if you're running that. And then 3 Blacklight, 3 I'm Invincible, and the full play set of New Genesis. So a couple of options there for you to look at in terms of what things you might want to play in an optimized build. Now, if we just jump back to the full deck list page here, we're going to talk about maybe some things just to keep in mind if you're going to be playing in the sealed event. Now, if you do have anything you want to add to this, or any questions, or if you want to have more of an in-depth view discussion on things, let's have a look at doing that in the comments. And if there's enough material that kind of comes up from it, happy to make another video on it. But these are kind of my initial thoughts on things to take note of if you're going to play in the Starter Deck 11 sealed event. And after we've spoken about these couple of little tips, initial thoughts, we'll have a look at the pricing that we can get from participating and then possibly winning this event. So things to keep in mind: you only have 4 2k counters, which is the Tony Chopper here. So I'm just going to say, don't play Chopper. Only use him as a 2k counter, because 2k counters are going to be super valuable in this kind of very sealed format. We found that 2k counters were very impactful when it was just the starter deck meta right at the beginning of the game, where you just have the 4 starter decks. So don't play Chopper. Just use Chopper as a 2k counter. The effect to rest something costed 2 or less. Only thing you're going to rest is another Chopper or a Jinbei, or maybe an Allure. Nothing else you're going to rest there, so definitely not worth it. Just play Chopper as a 2k counter. Now, having said that, with Chopper being the only 2k counter, optimal number to swing at every time at leader is 7k, because your opponent is going to have to ditch 3 cards, sometimes 2 cards, to get out of those swings. If they have the blocker Luffy, they're going to be ditching 1 card, but 7k is going to be the magic number. Try and swing 7k wherever you can. 6k if you know that your opponent has used some of their 2k counters, so always check your opponent's trash. Is probably another tip. Always check your opponent's trash for things like your 2k counters, the events, which we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, 7k magic number, especially early on. Late game, if you know that they've used some of their 2k counters, 6k is actually a magic number, because they're going to have to discard 2. But if you've got some Luffy's out, 7's still going to be the magic number. So I'm just going to say 7k magic number to swing at. Now, speaking of blockers, there's only 6 blockers in the deck. You have 2 that have 4k bodies in the Uta, and then you have 4 that have 7k bodies in the Luffy. Uta costs you 3, Luffy costs you 7. So Luffy is only going to see late game. So some early aggression is nice. So some early 6ks can be nice. Now when it does come to be able to play Luffy, Luffy can spam your board out quite nicely. So if we look at some combinations that we can kind of use with Luffy. So Luffy will let you play a 4 cost or less, which ideally will be Brook. Brook's effect lets you play a 3 cost or less, which can be the Uta, so you can get 2 blockers out for 7 Don. 3 characters, 7 Don. Not too bad. If you have an absolutely insane hand, if you've been board wiped, real cool combo is going Luffy into Brook, Brook into Robin. Robin's effect lets you play a cost of 2 or less from your hand. Then you play your Law or your Jinbei. Casual 4 characters for 7 Don, absolutely insane, wild, but you have to kind of see the perfect hand. And worst case scenario, you're going to play the Luffy into the Zoro or one of your vanillas here in your Usopp or your Jinbei. Now, another thing to take note of, there are 12 cards in the deck which don't have counter. So that's just under a quarter of the deck. So 1 in 4 cards that your opponent has probably doesn't have a counter. Now, 4 of those cards require 3 Don to be able to counter with, which is your Onigiri. So whenever your opponent leaves up 3 Don, they've probably got one of these in hand. And what the effect is, which you want to try and play around, is you can buff something by 6k, and then they get to play a character with a cost of 3 or less, but it has to be a vanilla. So their only targets are Usopp and Jinbei. So if your opponent has 3 Don, but if you know they've used a few of these Usopps, Jinbei, maybe they're just going to use it as a buff to get out of an attack. But if you haven't seen Usopp or Jinbei to leave 3 Don up, likely they're going to play that to play out another card. So where you can play around it so they don't get the value out of that. Now, do we want to go first or do we want to go second with Uta? Well, if you go first, the only turn 1 play that you have is New Genesis. That's literally and there's only 2 of them in the deck. So it's very unlikely you'll see this in your opening hand. Does have a fairly good odd curve, Uta. You got things like your Uta itself, your Usopp, your Luffy, your Robin, your Frankie, all on kind of an odd curve. And the extra attack you can get in sometimes can be valuable. So going first is not a bad thing at all. Now, if you do go second, a really cool play that you can possibly pull off is if you do see a Law and a Robin in your hand. So your first turn, you're going to have 2 Don, you play out the Law. Your second turn, you're going to have 4 Don. You use one of those Don to attach to your leader. You get the swing, the draw. You attach 2 of your 3 remaining Don onto Law, so you can swing 5 at leader. Then you can activate Law's effect, which is to rest 1 Don to replace Law with a character with a cost of 3 from your hand. It has to be a character with a cost of 3. So your only targets are the Robin or the Usopp. But ideally you have the Robin in your hand. You play the Robin. Robin's effect lets you play a character with a cost of 2 or less. So then you can just replay the Law. So you swung with the character, it comes back active, which kind of protects your characters, helps you have a nice wide board state. If you do have the Jinbei, great one to play out as well, gives you a body that's stronger as well. So yeah, not a bad little play to have happen right there. Now, other things to kind of keep note of, we've got a couple of cards that can rest or KO. So Blacklight is the main one, only 2 copies in the deck. Rest something with a cost of 5 or less, so that's resting everything in your deck except for Block of Luffy. And the other part of that effect is it'll KO something with a cost of 5 or less that is rested, which is everything in your deck except for Block of Luffy once again. The other card that rests things is the Onigiri, which is out of trigger, out of life. You can rest something with a cost of 5 or less. So that's something you probably want to keep in mind, especially late game if you know you have the exact amount of characters to kind of push the game. Definitely swing with your characters, with lower cost characters first. So if you have a choice between leader, Block of Luffy, and a Zoro, swing with the Zoro first in case you run into an Onigiri in life, and then go ahead and make the rest of your plays right there. Your I'm Invincible is really good late game. It helps you just get that extra swing, just like Kid. You can stack the remaining 7 Don on there, so you got 2 12k swings come late game. Absolutely insane. You've got a couple of characters on there as well. Helps you pump through blockers or other counter that your opponent has remaining. Okay, those are my initial thoughts. If you have any others, let me know in the comment section down below. We'd love to have a good discussion on that. Now let's take a look at the event details, the pricing that you get. So the event will be run anywhere between February 2nd to February 23rd. Check your Bandai TCG apps for when your local store is having them. Now if we scroll down, so the format is sealed, so literally you can only take 1 starter deck with you. You can't buy 2, you can't add the promos and stuff you get from it. It's just the starter deck. Those are the rules for this event. When you participate, you get one of these packs, which has all 8 of these cards in here. So an alternate art version of the New Genesis, the alternate art version of I'm Invincible, alternate art version of Blacklight. Then we get a new card in Fleeting Lullaby, which is not too bad, can be used in some of the optimized builds, not seeing a lot of them. The effect is if your leader's Uta, up to 2 of your opponent's rested characters with the cost of 4 less do not become active during the next refresh phase. So it's like a mini 10 cost Doflamingo. The triggers, you activate the same kind of effect there. Another new card that we get is the World's Continuation, which is a counter, which basically if your leader's Uta, you can return characters from your board to your hand to increase a character or leader by 2,000 for each card return just for the battle. Then you get Tot Musica, cost you 2 main effect, rest 1 of your Uta cards, and then rest 2 of your opponent's Don cards, which can help in terms of closing out games when you know your opponent has some events in hand. Probably not going to be super useful, super playable, but can possibly see some play. And then we've got Where the Wind Blows, which is a 2 cost activate main. If your leader's Uta, set all of your film type characters as active at the end of this turn, which can be quite good if you've got a few blockers out there, you want to get some extra swings. Really good. The trigger is the exact same. This is probably one of the better ones out of the promos that we get. Then the last card that we have is just a vanilla with Luffy, 8 cost, 10,000 body, 1,000 counter, film straw hat type. Now if we scroll down, the winner card is just that vanilla Luffy with the giant winner stamp on there. So definitely most of the value is going to come from the participation pack, some nice old cards, some exclusive promos just to this event. So these promos are probably going to fetch a pretty penny in the early stages. What I believe there's not a lot of the kits being sent out. I believe tournaments are capped at 16 players maybe from what I'm hearing. If I'm totally wrong, let me know in the comment section down below as well. But yeah, you get that as a winner card. And that's all the information we have on Starter Deck 11 for you. What do you think of the starter deck? Yay or nay? Are you into it? Are you not? Let us know all your thoughts down in the comment section down below. But stay beautiful, and we'll see you all in the next one.